delights. Now you say, what did you just say? Well, if it takes you 5 hours to understand it, it's worth it. Now let's look. To be wrapped up in the soul and bosom of all delights as Christ was must needs be a state transcending apprehension. To be where He was with the very, with the very fountain of all blessings, unquenchable, goes beyond anything our minds could comprehend. To have the fountain of love and delight. Now look what it says. This fountain of love and delight is personal. It's not some Hindu form of deity. It's not some cosmic, mindless, controlling force. But it has a will. Look what he's saying. To have the fountain of love and delight letting out itself. If God, I want you to think about this, if God were to let Himself out on you, it would utterly pulverize you. You say, yes, if He were to let out His wrath upon me, it would utterly pulverize you. No, that's not what I'm talking about. If He let out His delight upon you, it would pulverize you. Poetry, human secular poetry, is about men so enraptured with love that they think themselves to faint. That they think that they will lose their mind. That such rapturous delights of love will cause them to go mindless. If God were to pour out His love upon you, to let it out, to pull back the dam fully, and not measure it out to you, the delight, the sheer delight would kill you. That's why we must be strengthened to even experience His love. Now, with Christ, there was no measuring out of the Spirit. There was no measuring out of love. This in itself is proof of Christ's deity. Do you understand that? God's love is of such a magnitude, an angel would be drowned in it. And he goes on and he says, to have the fountain of love and delight letting out itself so immediate and fully and everlastingly upon this only begotten darling of His soul. It just keeps coming back to me this. I can talk to you and I can think myself trying to discern the greatness of Christ by comparing Him to lesser things. And you can learn a lot about His greatness when you realize He is incomparable. To whom will you compare me? But if you really want to know how great Christ was and is, then you must simply think about or try to understand His Father's consideration of Him. He was His Father's delight. Absolute, unblemished delight. It says, great persons have great delights. He says, so as it never did communicate itself to any, judge what a state of transcendent felicity this must be. Great persons have great delights. Now let's stop there for a moment. I'm going to run a little rabbit, but it's true. Great persons have great delights, even in the human realm. Miserly little men know nothing of great delights. Ignorant, brutish, beast-type men have no delights. One of the things that you must do, and we go back to this idea of art appreciation, You have to learn to appreciate true art. That's why we say of someone, they are refined. They listen to Brahms or Beethoven or Bach. They understand it. They relish it. They learned that. Someone who can sit there all day and look at Monet or Renoir. They learned that. They became refined. You see a great mind sit down and read a work of poetry and just literally be taken back by it. Spurgeon. And then some brute, some American, some teenager sit down and look at it and go, this is boring. Why do I got to read this? They snicker as though they're something because they can find no value in this, when actually what they're doing is revealing their stupidity, their dullness of heart. They're not a great man, a great mind. They're just a beast in tennis shoes. This is something that I'll give you another example. American restaurants. It's a perfect example. Americans don't care how trashy the food is. It's just, is there a lot of it? Can I get more and more and more? Unlimited. How many times can I go back to the salad bar? The food is trash. You go to a smorgasbord like that and just watch people just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. The food is bad. They'll even say it's bad, but they can get a lot of it. Or you go to a fine restaurant, and look at the portions they bring you. That's one of the things that people, well, look at this. I paid this much money and all I get is this little thing here, the little leaf on top of it. There's the difference. And you say, well, I'm not uppity, so I can't go to those fine restaurants. Let me just share something with you. Don't go to McDonald's, fast food, or any kind of normal restaurant you go to for 3 months. Save your money. And then go to a nice restaurant. Now, the point that I want to make to you is that we are born brutes. We are born brutes with regard to even what men call culture and refinement. But we are most certainly born brutes with regard to spiritual refinement. The task is to study the Scriptures, to pray, to read good books, to become discerning, to become wise, to become refined in your manner of thinking about God and in your manner of life. Now, I've used some hard words, but it's because I want to just shake you up for a minute to think. And sometimes a secular illustration can bring more to us that we understand a spiritual application. Become refined in the things of God. To be able to read Flavel or Edwards. When you first sit down and you read Edwards, the first paragraph takes like 3 days. And then you don't really understand what on earth is he saying and why does he say it this way. I mean, he could have said all that in a sentence. No, he could not have said all of that in a sentence. But if you'll stay there and you'll work through him and keep working at it and keep working at it and keep working at it, eventually you begin to see the beauty of it, the power of it. Just run another rabbit